Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session on New Dear Interface, All You Need to Know. You're listening to my voice, which is Reese. I'm the host of this session. I'm also the education specialist here at SIS Digital. And we have Kyle here as well, who's going to be handling the Q&A, and he's our project support executive, silent but deadly. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with SIS Digital, who have come in from the Dear newsletter, we're a business consultancy and cloud integration company. We essentially help businesses like yourself take control of their operations and take all the guesswork out. And one of our major platforms is Dear. We are actually the global leading partner of Dear. We have offices in Australia, the UK, and the US. And we like to actually keep our own clients up to date with any major changes in the platforms that they use. And we thought that it would be wise, considering the large changes to user interface with Dear, to offer this to the larger Dear client base. And so we have done that today. So we've got quite a large attendees here with us. So we've got a Q&A that is open up. You'll be able to raise any of the questions you do have during the session. I do ask that if you can keep it on topic for the user interface itself. We won't be able to go into broader areas of how to do this, how to do that. We want to keep focused on just the changes of the user interface today. So what is going to be covered in today's agenda? Well, we're going to be going over some of the new features that have come out during this user interface update. That includes the dashboard, the new vertical and horizontal menus, and also the fact that it is now mobile friendly for the first time. We're then going to go through some of the smaller changes throughout the system, some things that don't really find themselves in a feature release list, but are definitely things that you'll notice in your day-to-day, little changes, little improvements, and also some things that aren't so great that Dear are working on. So just to reiterate that all your questions can be posted into the Q&A box. They'll be assistedly answered by Kyle during the session. He'll be answering those in text. And then as we get to the end of the session, we'll be opening up a Q&A where I'll be addressing some of the questions in a short Q&A session that we believe would be helpful for the group. So let's get into things. So before I really get caught up in the new features and the changes, we want to kind of address one thing head on, which is why the change? Why did Dear make my Dear look differently? Change is hard, and change is very difficult when you rely on something for your day-to-day, especially if you're not necessarily a technical person out of the box. And the reason that the change occurred is that Dear have a laundry list of features that they want to include to enrich the experiences for all businesses. And the issue is that they'd outgrown what's referred to as the framework they were using on the previous integration of Dear. And that needed to change to bring some of the newer features that people have been requesting for some time from Dear. The way I like to think of it is it's a framework for a user interface is pretty much like a new family starting out in a 2-bedroom home. They've converted that second bedroom into a nursery and they're expecting a second. And I guess they can turn that other bedroom from a nursery, put in a bunk bed. But as soon as they're expecting the third, they have to actually move house. The family's still the same, but to do what they need to do, they need to actually change the framework they live in. So do try and keep an open mind. Change is difficult, as I say, and we're not going to excuse that, but this is to head forward. And we're going to be talking about at the end of the session ways that you can reach out and be talking to Dear directly to leave them your feedback, make your suggestions, and impact the change yourself. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to open up to a demonstration of Dear. So let's get into a fresh screen here. Give me 2 moments. Fantastic. So here we are on the Dear dashboard. This is one of the areas of the new system which has had some of the most fundamental changes. Previously, the Dear dashboard was kind of stuck in the mud. You had to be looking at analytics that were either today, yesterday, or this week. And now there's far more control in your fingertips and a lot more analytics that you can get without having to dig deep into custom reports in the reporting section. So the first things we want to talk about are the KPI, or key performance indicators, at the top. What we can actually do here is we can change between these different analytics to preview them in the chart below. We can also hover over any one of these months or dates to actually get a preview of the exact financial impact. Do note that currently, if you do move your cursor on one of these bars, it does flicker quite a lot, and we're hoping that Dear will get that fixed as soon as possible. Moving down, we have the bills and orders section of the dashboard. Now, the difference is here is this is all about the financial incoming of purchase order bills and the financial value of those coming into your business. These particular boxes up the top don't change the chart like the KPI above. They can actually change you to a pre-filtered list inside your purchase area. So for instance here, I have $10,000 awaiting delivery. If I was to select that, it would actually open up, in this instance, in a new tab, the list of my purchases in Dear, filtered by the awaiting delivery stage. So you can use this particular bills and orders module here to be able to micromanage the financial impact of incoming purchase orders. But you still do have down here your purchase and sales module as you've been using previously inside Dear, with some new additions. As we move down, we've got two new modules here. We've got the product overview module, which shows us the analytics of our top selling products by both the quantity sold and the value sold. We also see our worst selling products, where we have all the products that aren't performing as well as they should. We get some quick breakdowns here in regards to the brands used in our business and the performance of those. And then, of course, how we're performing in particular regions throughout the world or locally. The other module I want to show you that's new is over here, and it's the customer overview module. And as you see, it's currently collapsed. You can use the collapse function here, which is the arrow either pointing down or up, to expand any one of these modules or to minimize that module so it's not impacting the screen real estate too heavily. This shows you all information such as performance of sales rep. As you can see here, it's the amount of sales and also the value of the sales. We then also have our top customers, where we can quickly and easily see the customers that are purchasing the most sales through us, and also the value of which those are sitting at. We have the no buys yet, which is really handy for those that use integrations with CRM. This means that any customer that is coming into your Dear database but doesn't currently have a sale against them, you will now have an actionable list to be able to go into those customers and perhaps chase and follow up to land those particular sales. One thing to point out here is that this is quite a large list in this particular instance, and we're at page 1 of multiple pages, and I can switch between them by selecting these arrows here. The last area in the customer overview module is the performance by product. So this enables me to actually look up a product in my system, and it will show me the customer performance of that particular product. Who's buying the most of the Pale Ale 6-pack, for instance, in both number of sales and of the revenue it is bringing in. Now, some other things to be aware of. These are now adjustable in regards to their appearance and their placement on the actual dashboard. So I can drag and drop on the header portion of one of these modules and move that around to where I want that on the page. I can also use this expand tool here, which will expand that module, allowing it to take the full width of the page for that area. And if there's particular modules that aren't relevant for my user, I can actually come to that module. Let's say the product overview isn't relevant for whatever reason, and I can press the X to remove it from my dashboard. I can bring it back at a later point, and I'll be talking about that in a few moments. The reorder module is still here on the dashboard, but is largely unchanged, so just be aware of that. One of the last things I want to show in regards to the dashboard here today is one of my favorite new additions to the new dashboard interface, and it's the ability to actually change the time frame of what the analytics you're seeing on screen are. You'll notice up here in the top right-hand corner, I have a date period. I can select this date period to expand a dialog box, which either gives me custom control over what period of time I want to be looking at this financial data, or I can even use some of these quick links here. For instance, I want to see all the performance of this month. Hit apply, and that will update the actual interface, showing you only the financial data for that period. This is a feature that's been requested for some time, as lots of businesses are very different in regards to how their financial data at a glance is relevant. For a lot of businesses, it isn't day to day. It might be per week. It might be per month or quarter. And this allows you to actually look at the full scope of where you're standing at a glance under your own control. So that is the large portion of the dashboard itself. One thing I do want to show you though, and it will lead into the next topic, which is the menu structure and the menu change here in Dear, is the style changing cog up here in the top right-hand corner. This cog enables you to change the look and feel of Dear, both universally on every page you visit, but also to change specific things on the page you're currently looking at. And at the moment, they have some specific sets of tools you can use just for the dashboard. And I'm going to show you them now. So if I open up this cog here, the first things I want to show you are down below here, we have the dashboard settings. These enable me to reset the layout if I've gone around and I've modified and moved things to a point that I don't like the look of it anymore. I can also expand or collapse all those modules in bulk. But of course, I can remove and I can re-include any of those modules that I happen to accidentally remove. I can do that from this area as well. The other thing I want to point out is that we now can modify the theme color of our Dear interface. The default here is this dark navy, and I found so far in my testing that this is the most fully fledged and most attractive interface for Dear so far. But if it's a little bit sore on your eyes, you can mix things up. I can change this here to a lighter interface, and you notice that the menu structure has changed to accommodate. So that changes the theme in its entirety. Every page you visit will now adopt that theme, but it is only unique to your user. And that's one thing I wanted to touch base on before we leave the dashboard completely, is these changes you're making to the appearance are just for you and just how you work and want to work. So don't be concerned if you want to mix things up a little bit, you're not impacting the greater business, but it may actually impact if you are receiving support internally by your own via your own company. If there isn't some consistency, it might get a little bit harder to handle in regards to support inquiries. So for the rest of this, I'm going to actually change it back to the defaults, just so it's familiar for what most people are going to see out of the box. Fantastic. So that is the dashboard and some of the new things you can play around with there. I recommend jumping in, having a bit of fun, and seeing if you can make a dashboard that is unique to your own business. So the next thing we want to be talking about is the change, and probably the biggest change for most people. It's the change from a horizontal menu, where the menu is up the top of the actual screen, moving across left to right, to a vertical menu, where we now have a menu down the side of the screen to the left. Now, we first want to talk about why has Dear even made this change? Is there any reason apart from just mixing us all up and confusing us? Well, the main reason is that our screens are landscape. They are long horizontally, and they are short as far as how tall they are. But when we're working in Deer, when we're working on sales orders and purchase orders, etc., they are very portrait, like a piece of paper. They are long. And as soon as you have a menu structure that's up the top, it will cover up things you're working on and chew up a lot of your, what we like to refer to as screen real estate. Whereas if we have a vertical menu, it means that I can actually open up these modules without covering up much of what I would be working on a traditional page. So this is the new vertical menu. You notice as I move through these modules, there's some iconography to help you in regards to what they are. And there's a few things in regards to being able to quickly create new items from the menu itself and also search in these particular areas. I want to show you just a few little tricks and recommendations that I've already made. The one thing I want to point out with the current menu is you'll notice it is a little bit hard to actually see these new and search as headers. And that's what they are. They're actually headers. Everything here is to create a new simple sale, advanced sale, service sale. And everything here below search is to search my sales or my fulfillment orders, etc. But that can be a little bit hard to read in the current interface. And this brings me to the one function, which is locking the vertical menu. You notice up here in the top left-hand corner, we have a menu icon, or as some people refer to it, the hamburger icon. If we select this, it actually expands the whole menu and keeps it stationary. It will then compress the actual page. So we've still got a lot of screen real estate, as you can see, but it's actually got that inline and locked to the side. And that means as I'm working on things, I can be getting ready to go to different areas of work throughout Deer whilst keeping this here on the side. Also, while it's in the locked state, it does clearly show that these are headers and makes that just a little bit easier for you to jump in and out as you're getting used to the new interface. So there's a few little things we want to be talking about here as well. And that is going to be, but what if I really, really like the older way of the menu? What if I really want the horizontal menu structure? Well, there's good news there. Even though Deer really wants you to be using this because it's going to be more efficient and going to be easier for a lot of people, they still have enabled you to return to the previous menu style. And how we do that is using that cog again up here in the top right-hand corner for our style. And we go here, we have menu layout option. And currently that's selected to vertical. If I select this dial, it switches to horizontal. And lo and behold, we see an interface that is almost identical to the previous horizontal menu structure. So my heartfelt suggestion to you would be, please give it a go. Try it out. Try the vertical menu. It is going to be a much more efficient way to be working. But if it's too scary and you're kind of done with it, by all means, go up to that cog and turn it back to horizontal. For the remainder of the session, I'm going to be switching back to vertical, just so I can get used to the new changes as well. So now what I want to be doing is I want to showcase the mobile compatibility of the new interface. Now, I've been having some technical difficulties this morning. For some reason, we've got a gremlin happening on our iPad, and I haven't been able to easily share my screen like I have in previous run-throughs of this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if we're having any technical luck right now and seeing if the iPad gods are praying for us. Let's see if I can get the iPad on screen now. And unfortunately, it looks like the iPad live demo isn't going to work according to plan. But luckily, I do have something that we quickly prepared before the session as we realized the iPad isn't cooperating today. I've now shared the screen of some images I've taken just of the sales interface here using the iPad. So one thing I want to actually point out is that even though this new interface is indeed mobile compatible, meaning that you can get your iPhone or Android out and log in. It really is only close to the web interface and experience when you're using it on an iPad. And this screen you're seeing here is an image from an iPad mini, so an even smaller iPad. Now, this just means that you do have the ability, if you're on the road, if you have salespeople that need to look up inventory while they're at clients, and they have only the device in their pocket or hands on them, they can very quickly log into Deer and get the information thereafter. So if I switch here, I've now got a landscape version of that order. We're on the iPad, I'm looking up the products, and you see it all looks quite clear. And we've been going through a bit of testing, and we're very, very happy with the improvements they've made here. So if we rank the experience of using Deer on the go, we're still going to vote hands down that a laptop is the superior option. But if you already have an existing fleet of iPads and you wanted some more functionality, then by all means, that would be the next best thing, larger versus smaller. This will also work on Android tablets and also Windows tablets like Windows Surface, but that Windows Surface has been working out of the box for some time. And then last but not least, if you're really caught in a pickle, get your mobile phone out, jump to inventory.deersystems.com and log in. You might find it's a slower process on the mobile, but you'll have that information literally at your fingertips. So I do apologize that I haven't been able to give you a live demonstration there. Unfortunately, even our testings for the iPad fell through this morning. So what we want to do now is I want to go back into our standard Deer interface, and we want to talk about some of the smaller things we like, things we don't like, things to just be aware of. And I'm going to go through a few of these lists. This is stuff that you're not really that are not going to be really too heavily in a feature list. So the first thing I want to do is I want to actually head to a new sale. I'm just going to go here into the tag there, which is the sale. And I'm going to go new, and I'm going to go simple sale. So the first thing I wanted to do here is raise a point that the modules you use day in, day out, whether it's assembly, whether it's sales and purchase orders, the boxes have slightly changed and got a bit of a facelift, with some of these areas getting larger typeface for more readability. But the functions are exactly the same. There's only minute subtleties, and some of them are very, very handy. The one I want to point out here, and I might just bring my annotations up to do so, is we have what's referred to as a breadcrumb trail. That means that as I delve deeper into a particular module, I'll always be able to go back to the top levels that I've already been to or that make sense in that area. So currently I'm in a simple sale, and I got there through the sales area, and then the last area is home. This enables me to actually hover over and select sales to take myself back to the actual sales list itself. Now, one thing we wanted to point out here is there's some changes to the way that these lists work now. You still can rearrange these columns by dragging and dropping any one of the column headings. I can drag, for instance, the 2 before the order date, and that will move it like so. So just to show you that one more time, if, for instance, I want to move the reference over past the documents area, I would click and hold and initiate a drag, and then I would drop, and that would move that. You'll also notice as you hover over the interface that a expand or contract, a resizing cursor appears. This enables you at each of the edges of the column to resize these. The current list views are adaptive in regards to the font size that they use to show the information on screen. So you notice here, we've got down here, we've got quite a lot of information in this documents area. So if I was to actually rearrange and I was to move and make that documents column smaller, it would intelligently shrink that text so that it actually fits within that column. So similar you would find in Excel. So just be aware that you might find certain areas you'd go to where you're looking at a list within Dear. You can expand, you can give more breathing space if you find that it's a little bit too claustrophobic for you. The other thing to be aware of is that you've still got your cog over here at the far right. This was introduced in the new sales module in the last interface update. And this enables you to show and hide additional columns, of which from there you can minimize and modify how you like, and also change the sort order from ascending to descending. So that's some changes that have happened in the list area. Let's go back to a simple sale to show you some of the other changes in this particular area. And while that's kicking in, I'm just going to take a sip of water. Okay. So, some other things that have changed. Our document status in regards to moving from draft to authorize and complete has been changed to this little tag that appears right there and is color-coded right next to the name of the actual sale. So you can see that a little bit more evidently. Also, our save options and our back to list options are up here at the far top of the page, but also everywhere where I visit on this sales order, there's a save button as I move down the page. You notice down here in the bottom right, it's following me around. That's going to be the same on purchase orders and pretty much any document entry in the new Dear interface. The other thing I wanted to showcase is you may remember that in the older system, if you were ever adding a customer, you'd have to open up this dialog. You'd perhaps even have to start a search to check if they're there. And that's when you'll be presented with a link in this drop-down to add a new customer. Now you can actually add that on the fly using this plus symbol here. And you'll notice that that is populated on a few different areas where you can add that content on the fly. So I can press plus here and it will bring up the new customer dialog box for me to add right there and then, just saving you a few more clicks and making things just a little bit easier. What I'm now going to show you here, if I look up a client, jobs for dogs, that will do. One thing I wanted to point out is that we now have the sales rep automatically selected even if it isn't set up as a customer default. For a lot of businesses, they've really been having issues where they only have one salesperson, and every time they add a new sale, they always forget to select a salesperson in that box. So now that will be pre-filled, so you won't run into any of those nasty errors going, hey, you need to fill in the sales rep box. The one limitation of this so far is it auto-fills the first in the list of the sales reps you've entered in your customer contacts area of reference books. It won't allow you to select which salesperson you wish to default for all sales where you haven't selected another. But for smaller operation, that's going to be a nice saving just out of the box. The next thing I want to show you is this new checkbox here, which is the ship to different company. You have for some time been able to change the shipping address, but it's always been using the shipping details of the current connected customer. And there are lots of scenarios where you'll be shipping a specific item to maybe a store or a particular address that is separate from that business that you're doing the standard transaction for. Now, what this enables you to do is select this checkbox, and you're able to add in a separate contact detail for where this is being shipped to. Now, the one issue with this currently is that you can't just look up. So if that contact already exists in your Dear database, you can't just search and find them and apply them as a different company it's shipping to. At this stage, you have to always add in the company name, the contact, and the line details. It doesn't then go and create a company file. At this stage, it's just this one-off creation of this company, which you may find that if you do a lot of these consistently, that may actually not be as efficient as you like, but Dear have already taken feedback in regards to making this far more efficient moving forward. but it's a great thing to have. So the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to quickly populate this with some products, as I'll need it to demonstrate one thing in a few moments. So I'm just going to look up some of that payroll here. You'll notice that this is all the same. We do have some images displaying now in the simple sales. That was something previously was only available in the advanced sale function. So I'm just going to authorize this order. And now I want to point out some changes here, mainly in the attachments area. We notice now the attachments doesn't have just a browse button. You can now use drag and drop. So if I wanted to, I can drag here an image of our of our lovely friend Dan, and that's now just been simply dragged and dropped and attached. That will work for any kind of file you wish to upload and attach. So whether it's an image, whether it's a PDF, a Word document, Excel, whatever you may want to upload, you can now drag and drop that file easily into that window. If you wanted to, you can select this box, and that will enable you to navigate and attach those files in a more of a traditional way as well. Fantastic. The next thing I want to show you is some improvements that have been coming and kind of coming through for a little bit of time, but I want to bring attention to it now. And it's in relation to easily applying customer credits. So if I just complete this invoice, let's select today, and I hit authorize. If this customer actually has a credit in the system, so this is generated from doing a return and then choosing to push that not to a refund, but to actually be a customer credit, you can now come down here to the payments area within DIR and select the use customer credit, either here in the list of payment items or up here at the header. And doing so will take you to this allocation screen. So currently I can see that on the 13th of the 9th, there was a return that was for the value of $2,200. I can select this and it will apply the $220 required for this invoice from that available credit. And then I can keep taking that customer credit there. This is just providing a really efficient interface for you to handle the customer credits in the system quite smoothly. So I can hit add and save. And you'll now notice down here we have that credit detail has been added in. Fantastic. The next thing I want to show is if I go into the production area, we've got an area a module that has been renamed for some more transparency. You may remember a function in the production area which was issue to production, and a lot of people weren't really familiar with what that is. That's just been renamed now to inventory write-off, which is far more accurate to what the function is. And all this is essentially a stock adjustment where all you're doing is taking items out and impacting an expense account. And you'll see the inventory write-off function in many different areas of the DIR interface. It all works the same. It's for you writing off that inventory, both quantity and value, and impacting a specific expense account. So just be aware of that rename. Another thing to be aware of is that your accounting integration, whether it's Xero or QuickBooks Online, has moved from where it was previously, down here at the bottom of the page. It's now moved to the top of the page. So you'll notice here, we have our Xero connection. It shows the company name that's connected to. And just like before, I can open this up and I can see the status of that sync and also initiate a sync there. So that's just moved from the bottom of the page to the top. Please be aware of that change as it has tripped a few people up. So the next thing we want to talk about are some changes that have happened in the integration screen. Now, we don't have time today to go through every single integration, but luckily the changes are fairly universal. So what we can do here, if I head into our integrations section, I'm just going to open up an integration here we have for Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform. Whether it's WooCommerce or Amazon, etc., this interface is the same. So I'm just going to open this up for us today and have a look at some of these changes. So at first, if you use any of these integrations and you visited this page after the update, you may have been fairly disorientated by this change. But luckily, it's actually some improvements to what was here. So the first landing page of an integration now is analytics. Now, we haven't been selling any of our demo products in Shopify, so we're not seeing too much here. But we are going to see on a live system the performance over today, weekly, monthly, and the total of sales. We're going to get a list of the sales that have generated and come through, and we can easily see a list of customers that have come through here. So we get almost like a dashboard for each of our integrations. And you might ask, where are all my settings? Where are all my functions? We have two levels of that. On the sidebar here, we have the specifics for individual stores. So we're seeing here if we have multi-store connections, we're seeing all the analytics for each individual store. But then if we go over here to our Shopify section, we have all those standard settings we see in other integration pages living here. So the tabs across will take you to each connection you've set up using this integration. You've then got your standard setup options, as was the same, with just some wider and more detailed buttons and information as you hover over each of these fields. And then you have the catalog options here, your bulk listing options, pending orders, etc., and the log and operations logs. They're still there and they operate in the same way they always have. So the next thing I want to point out is some little, some hiccups and some things that, that I need to point out today. Now, I want to take a moment to let you know that when this came out a week and a half ago, we were in a similar spot to yourself. We logged in and we saw all the changes. And even though we'd been seeing some of this as preview developments for some time, we had to quickly get used to things as well. And we started a list of all the things that we weren't happy with all the things that were bugs and issues. And we've been working with Dear to make sure they're aware of those and getting that information across. Now that list started to be quite large, and it was the main guts of what we wanted to be talking about today. Now, I'm happy to report that they've got so many people on this new UI and getting this running very, very smoothly, that so many of the issues that we have already actually been resolved. So I don't have as many things as I was hoping to share with you today, but that's a good thing, that a lot of these have already been fixed by Dear. One thing I did want to show you though, if you don't have the menu bar locked and you do hover over one of these particular areas, you may find that if you hover over the header of some of these fields, let's see if I can get this working, that the menu bar on the side goes semi-transparent and isn't very nice and clean. Now that's something that Dear are aware of and they're working on fixing that, but be aware that if you are locking the menu bar, that doesn't occur. The next thing I want to be talking about is just a little bit of housekeeping inside the reorder supplier links. So this is in the reorder section. So if I go here to purchases, and if you're using the reorder module here, where it looks at your minimum stock levels you've marked for items, and then it takes a recommended order amount. Currently, we have a list of your suppliers, and you have to be aware that these here, these phone numbers and the email address are actually links to the email or to start a call. So a lot of people have been accidentally pressing these and starting an email by accident. Just be aware to either press the name of the supplier or to select the whole row in its entirety, which will do the same thing. Just be aware of that one. The other thing, which is a little bit superficial, but we want to be talking about nonetheless, is currently with the new user interface, the reports module is, if we're perfectly honest, just looking a bit ugly. There's far more lines than were on here previously. It still works in the same way and it's still exporting the reports that you have gotten used to, but a lot of people aren't too happy just by the appearance of this. Dear are aware of this and we're hoping to see a resolution to this soon. The other area I want to be showing is inside inventory, which is the stock availability screen. So if we go down here to availability in inventory, this is one of the areas that you might find very hard to read out of the box. And the reason is it comes back to the automatic resizing that Deer does to the fonts. And this is a particular area where there can be a lot of information on screen. So just be aware that you might come in and your stock on hand might be looking like very busy, like we see here. And just using some of the tools we talked about previously, using the expanding options, but also going into the cog and removing columns that aren't required for your day-to-day use would be a great way to improve the performance of the stock availability. And I am aware that Deer are working on some major updates to the availability screen, and they can't wait to have them out to you. It's going to be some far more advanced ways of using the availability screen. Fantastic. So what I want to do now is we have all but covered all the things I wanted to demonstrate live that I've got here in my list. So give me 2 moments. I'm just going to move us through to talk a little bit more about what we can do now and what you can do now, depending on the position you find yourself in after this webinar. The first thing I want to talk about is Deer's role right now. And if you're experiencing any things like bugs and any particular issues that are really breaking down your day-to-day work, you need to email them directly, support@deersystems.com. This will mean that they can resolve this major issue that is stopping you working, and will essentially get the quickest resolution to whatever you're running into, is essentially what I'm saying. The other side is the instance of feedback. Now, Deer want to make the best version of Deer they can, and they can only do that with your feedback and with your help. So we need to make sure that if you've got a voice, if you've got an opinion, if you've got things that you want to see included into Deer, that voice is being heard and that it can be actioned on. So what Deer have done, just to assist with, I guess, ensuring you have a spot after this webinar to make your voice heard, is they've, on the Deer support forum, which I recommend if you're not a member getting on straight away, they've opened up a discussion point for the new user interface for them to listen to your feedback and get the information and get the things that you're not happy with and the things you are happy with. Like, don't leave out the positive stuff. Everyone has a hard day at work. Now, we now should probably have a chat just quickly about where we come into this. You know, we aren't just a company that does webinars. This is, I guess, the sales portion of this conversation. But if your issues with Deer or your desires with Deer go beyond a forum or a support ticket, we can do everything from coming in, looking at your current Deer system and operating a health check. We can do consultations. We can even do, of course, full implementations of Deer if you haven't got it set up already. We can help you refine your process development. And of course, we can help you connect Deer to other integrations. And we do have a direct link that will be provided after this session. So you can schedule a direct call with one of our salespeople, whether it's in the UK, the US, or Australia. And we can talk about how we might be able to help you a little bit more. All this information, the support forum, the email for Deer as well, and of course, our link to, if you want to get anything done with us at Asias Digital, will be sent along with a recording of this video tomorrow. Essentially, in 24 hours time, you'll have an email with those details that you can follow through. If you need to get in touch with us urgently, I'd recommend jumping onto asiasdigital.com and you'll be able to raise an inquiry there if you need so urgently. So this brings us to a short Q&A session. Now, we are unfortunately running out of time at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see how we are going with Kyle's questions. And I'll see if there's ones here that I really want to bring to the forefront in regards to these questions. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, let's have a look here. Looks like Kyle has been doing great work and that most of these are answered, which is awesome. One note to note with any questions that are currently unanswered, and if we do unfortunately run out of time and end the session prior to answering them, we will be following those up. We have your name and your details in regards, and your question, of course, and we'll want to make sure that we can help you with those as well. So we'll be following those up with emails to answer those. So give me 2 seconds, and I just want to have a look here. So I've got one here from Michelle who asks, if you switch from one company to another, do your preferences actually change? And from my understanding, and we'll probably do a little bit more testing on this here, but I'm just going to share across back into my live screen here, that your preferences don't actually change. And the reason is your role in each business may actually be different. So if I had a look here, and let's say that I remove this KPI area here and I move these and I move all this stuff from my dashboard and I switch over to another one of our companies here, we notice that that dashboard preference hasn't retained. But if I was still going back into my demo account here, we'll notice that those changes are still applicable. So that was a great question. Thank you for that one. So Peter asks, I want to confirm we're selecting a different address that will not save the address on the company from the customer account. So I want to clarify with that, just so you understand, there is one thing to understand with the new ship to different company checkbox. When you have the ship to different company checkbox enabled, it's really saying this is going to a different company. Traditionally, if it was just shipping to a different address for the same company, you could either add or select a different shipping address here. In the shipping address, I haven't added a customer, so we can't see it there. But if you added a shipping address into that particular area, it would actually save to the customer you got selected. It's only that the different company option will not save that as a separate contact. Thank you for that, Peter. That was a really good question. And yes, Michelle, the dashboard settings are on a user level. All your interface changes, whether you're applying filters, you're changing your column layouts in lists, they're all on a user basis. So don't be afraid about making the Dear interface suitable to how you work. If you're in accounts or if you're in inventory, you're going to need to see different stuff and you're not going to need to see certain other things. There's a question here from Amy, which is a great one. It isn't necessarily related to this, this session, but it might be applicable to a lot of people. Amy's asking if you're able to export an invoice to Xero as a draft instead of authorized. Inside the Xero integration settings, you can choose what level of authorization that invoice is populated, whether it's a bill or whether it's a sales invoice, into your Xero account. You can choose that. It can come across only as draft and then require further authorization inside Xero, or it can come straight into Xero as an already authorized document. John asks a really good question here. Is there a way to permanently hide completed sales in the sales list? Now, not a native option here. One thing you may already be aware of, John, and all those listening, is that you do actually have this drop down here in regards to what is shown, which currently is set to all sales but voided. Then you have all the options here in regards to different statuses of the document. One that would actually, sorry, I didn't realize that I actually still have the Q&A screen up. So I've been showing you stuff and you haven't been seeing. I do apologize. So what we see here in the sales list view is going to be a drop down of the different options and the different statuses of the document. So the one thing I want to recommend here, it's not the perfect solution, but if you went here into not invoiced, you may find that that will drop down the list to a degree, but currently there isn't an option there to say all my uncompleted, which would be a really good option, and I recommend putting that as a feature request to Dear directly, as I know we'll be recommending. Here's one here from Kat. If you resize your browser to iPad size, will we see it? You will see a little bit of this. So we'll see if we can demonstrate this here. The screen is adaptive. So if I modify this here and I get close to it, we notice when I let go there that it has changed into a more iPad friendly display. So now if I was to actually open up a new sale, we'd see this here. It's hard to do. I don't believe we can force this on the desktop in a landscape way, but you notice here, I've got these options I can go through. I then get down to the actual sale area here, and I'll be able to add these as I need. Really, really great question. It's more so that you guys can get a bit of an impression of how this appears. If I go back to home, we notice here that the dashboard is modified to actually fit within this display as well. And the menu, if you're in portrait mode on your iPad or tablet, is up here in the top and expands down almost like a standard navigation bar for a website. And you can do so like that. Great question. We're running out of time. I'm just going to see some short ones I can probably sort out. There's a few questions here in regards to, is there going to be an app in the future? Dear are very interested in apps, but what they do want to make sure is that they're not yet closing off any kind of doors for anyone. If they quickly go and say, create an iPad app, then what about people on Android or whatnot? Obviously, I can't speak for Dear directly, but I know that they really are interested in doing more with apps. There is one current app live on the App Store, which is for the point of sale system. So if you are using Dear Point of Sale, you can actually operate that app, and that has some interface design rules purely for the app, which makes that really nice and easy. Janet, it will work on a cell phone, but it will work. But will you be able to actually be happy with that experience? I'm unsure. It is not perfect, but that is an issue with a mobile size, a cell phone size, not necessarily an issue with the interface. There's a lot of information you need from Dear, and the smaller your screen, the harder it is to get that information you're after. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. So for all those unanswered questions, we'll be reaching out with you to get those sorted. We thank you for attending. It's been fantastic. I apologize with any of the kerfuffles we've had in regards to all the issues with the mobile display, but unfortunately, sometimes technology doesn't play nice. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for actually coming in today. If you have any questions, or if you want to reach out to Asias Digital, or if you want a copy of that recording, all those details will be in your inbox in the next 24 hours. Take care and have a lovely day.